Hello, welcome to today's video. Today I'm bringing you my makeup inventory. I'm always a little bit nervous to bring this video to everyone because it's kind of like outing yourself in a way, but at the same time I feel like I learned, last year was the first time I ever counted an inventory and kept track of it throughout the year, and I feel like I'm learning a little bit from it along and along. I think this is going to be a longer process for me to learn about myself, but yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But for now, I've scooted over so that we can use this portion of the screen, and let's go ahead, jump into the categories. I'm going to talk about my goals in certain, like what my numbers are, what my goals are to get my collection down and along. And then I may occasionally talk about there are some categories of my makeup where I realize I have what might approach an ideal number, and then there are some categories of my makeup where I'm still completely clueless as to what an ideal number for me should be. So you'll see that a little bit, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the categories. So let's go ahead and jump into primers. Primers, as of last year when I started, I had 20. In August I had 23, and my goal by the end of last year was to get my collection back down to 20. I actually didn't formulate any of the goals that you hear as of last year. I formulated in August because in January of last year I had no earthly idea what I wanted goal-wise. So in August I kind of said, okay, let me start reaching or setting some goals to reach by the end of the year. And so when you hear goals, that's what I'm talking about. And then this year I've set a new goal, so you'll see that. So as of last year, my goal for the end of last year was 20 for primers, and now I have 20. So I met my goal, the one I set in August, I met my goal of 20. I ended up using up 4 primers, which I thought was pretty good. And then I did buy 4 new primers, which wasn't great. Now my goal this year is going to be to get my collection down to 15. So that means that I have to use 5, and I'm not going to bring 5 more in. Another thing I should say is last year I was not on a no buy, so it wasn't realistic. I hadn't really thought about how many of a type of product do I on average work out of my collection in a year, and therefore what's reasonable to bring in a year. And now that I've kept track of a year-long empties, this past year was my first time ever keeping a year-long empties. I'll try to link it here if you're interested. Now I kind of get a sense of how to manage a collection a little bit better, because I had tracked empties before, but I'd never looked at what I actually use up in a year. Like, the year-long empties things was actually pretty, like, it made me learn quite a bit. So that's what you'll see a little bit of this. I think for in the future, long term down the road, I'd like to have far less primers. I don't quite know a number yet, but I'd like to have, you know, a good 1 or 2 pore filling, a good mattifying one, a good hydrating one, a good glowy, and then maybe allow myself room to test 1 or 2, but then that be it, because I know on average I only work about 4 to 5 primers out of my collection in a year. So I have to keep that in mind, that I can't be bringing in an unrealistic amount and also not using up like a realistic amount. So moving into foundation. In January, I had 25 last year. In August, I had 25. My goal was to get myself to 20 by the end of last year, and I'm now at 23. So this is a category that I think is probably one of the most out of control in my collection. And I feel like when I read you these next numbers, you'll understand that I'm sliding in the right direction, but I'm not there yet. So I used up 5 foundations last year, which I'm really proud of. I decluttered 3, which I'm also really proud of because I'm not very good at letting things go. I reorganized 1. So what that means is I took one, it was a foundation stick or a contour highlighting stick from Pure, and as I've used it more this year, I realized this thing is not a foundation. It is strictly a contour stick for me. So I moved it to my bronzers. So that is like, it didn't technically leave my collection, but it did go in another category. So, and then I have 7 new foundations. Now that, I'm surprised that I even bought 7 last year, but now that I've done that year-long empties, like I said, I feel like I've learned to keep an eye on the fact that, look, you know, on average, you use about 5 foundations a year. So if you're eyeballing foundations throughout the year and you bought, you know, 2 or 3 already, you need to slow your roll. My goal for this year, by the end of this year, I'm gonna try to get my collection down to 17, which is gonna be intense for me, but at the same time, I will also try to link this video in the cards. I have really downsized what I've kept here in Sweden. I have sent a lot of my newer foundations, or my unopened foundations, are home waiting for me with my in-laws, my parents, in storage, and so I have like a significantly smaller collection of foundations here with me, and I'm hoping that will increase my chances of using them up or using more foundations up throughout this year. So hopefully that's realistic for me to drop down to 17. Now concealers, let's move in here. January I had 13, August I had 13, and my goal was 9. I'm currently at 11. I used 5 concealers up last year and I got 3 new ones. So for me, concealer, that number doesn't really scare me. I feel like I'm someone who uses a lot of concealer. I don't use a ton of foundation now that I realize that, and I tend to kind of use a lot more concealer than probably the average person. So 9 concealers is my goal, and I honestly probably ideally would keep that one around that number in the future too, because I don't mind having a lot of concealer. All right, moving into powder. Powder in January last year I had 14, in August I had 17, and then my goal was 14, and now I am at 15, which isn't bad. I used 3 powders last year, and I bought 4 new powders, or like one of them was like a mini guy, so kind of taking that into consideration that some of my powders are minis. And then my goal for the end of this year is to get my powders down to 12, which I think is going to push me outside of my comfort zone a little bit. But I think it might be realistic to do that. In the future, I think ideally I would like to have a much smaller powder collection. I definitely think this one is on the verge of kind of being out of control. I think I would prefer to have like 1, maybe 2 loose powders, since that's my preference, and then 1 like blotting style powder where that's what I use like in my bag on the day-to-day to like blot oiliness. And maybe 1 to be trying out, whether it be pressed or loose, I'm not sure. But that's kind of all I foresee myself really needing in the future. So I have a lot of work to do in this category long term, but it's gonna be a long time before I hit anything near that goal. All right, moving into bronzer. In January, I had 13. In August, I had 13. My goal was 12, and I am now at 12. So here I used up 2 bronzers last year. I decluttered 1, and then I had the one coming in from the foundation category, and then I had 1 new one. So I am currently gonna set my goal at 10, but I also just wanted to add that I'm not too overwhelmed. I'm not feeling currently overwhelmed by my bronzer collection, because as of last year, I hit I hit 7 pans within my collection. So that meaning one of those products has like, I think 3 or 4 new pans in it. Like one product technically had more than 1 pan in it, but still I managed to hit 7 pans within my bronzer collection last year is what I'm trying to say. And so I feel decent about it, but I think this is a collection that this part of my collection could probably stand to downsize in the future, but I'm not feeling overwhelmed. So at the same time, I'm not kind of pressuring myself to downsize it too quickly. So again, my goal for this part of my collection is to get down to 10 by the end of this year. Okay, moving into blushes. In January, I had 11 products. In August, I had 15 products. My goal was 14, and I am currently at 15 products, which is a lot. I used 1 blush item up last year. It was a lipstick that I was using as a blush. I ended up getting 5 new products, and yeah, it's a lot. And then but I did want to mention that I do have pan in 2 of my products, so that's pretty nice. So it's probably not ideal that I added 5 products in, considering that you don't really finish blush items that often. But I will say that the blush items that I added in this year, I absolutely adore. And I feel like I'm getting smarter with my purchases. Like I'm not, like I used to be someone who, it's on sale, it's mine. And now I feel like the things I added in this year are formulas that I know that I really adore. Like I adore a satiny, glowy kind of blush, not something that's completely matte. And I think all of my new blushes were that formula, and they were things I've really been wanting to try for a long time, or that they were a brand that I love and wanted more of. So I can tell that like my consuming habits aren't, fixed, but I can tell that I am being a little bit smarter about bringing in things that I know that I'm really going to enjoy. Also, I do want to mention that I did hit pan on 2 of my blushes last year, which even though I didn't finish any up besides the little lipstick one, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So my goal for this next year is to keep it at 15. So that means that, if I bring anything in, I kind of need to force myself to use something up or either declutter, which will be difficult for me. Also quickly, I'm sorry if you hear some sort of construction noises. They just started working again in my building today. I thought they were done. I waited till later in the day to film, but apparently that was just a really long lunch break, and here we are with the noise again. So I apologize for that. Moving into highlight, last year I had 22 in January. As of August, I had 25, and my goal I set for 24, and now I have 27. So we're kind of moving in the wrong direction, but I did use up one highlight, so I am proud of that. It was a liquid highlight. I decluttered one highlight, which again, I'm pretty proud of, and then I did get 7 new highlights. And pretty much all of those, almost all of those came at the, in December. Not all of them, almost all of them came in December. I got a little highlight crazy at TJ Maxx. And again, I definitely didn't need 7 new highlights. I needed 0, but I do really, really like what I picked up. And I picked up things that I genuinely have been curious about, or that I really think I would enjoy. So I think highlight's one of those part of my collection that I need to know. Ideally, my number's not going to be like 5. It's going to be kind of large, just because I like to rotate and I like to get use out of so many different kinds of highlights. And so that's going to be something that I need to figure out. I would like to figure out what my ideal collection size is for highlight, but at the same time, I don't think it will be small, just because of my own creativity and preference kind of thing. With that being said, I did hit pan on 4 highlights last year, which again, I'm super proud of the amount that I use my highlights. I do use them, and that should tell you and show you that. And then this year, I'm making my goal for highlights 25. So I actually am gonna try to work through a couple this year and see what happens, but we'll see if I get that by the end of this year. Moving into brows, in January I had 17, in August I had 17, and my goal was 13. I'm now at 15. I was really hoping to finish off some additional brow gels, and I just haven't, they're just still hanging on, so hopefully you'll see that number change quite a bit this coming year. I used 2 brow products last year. I did not buy any brow products. This is a part of my collection that is way too big, but I was gifted, before we moved to Sweden, I was gifted quite a large number of brow products, and yeah, they take forever to go through. Last year, I was trying to work on a brow pomade that I had been working on for a year before I even put it into a project all year. And oh my goodness, I still haven't finished that thing. That's how long brow products take me to go through. Eventually, I will get through that brow pomade, and I'll be able to use hopefully some of my pencils up a little bit quicker, and I'll be able to get that number way down. So my goal I'm setting for myself by the end of this year is to get it down to 10, because I don't think it's realistic to even cut that number in half yet. But I will try my darndest to get that number down. And brows is something that I think I see myself really only having 4, maybe 5 items at the most in the future. I definitely don't need 17 or so, or not even 13, 15. I don't need that many, maybe 4. Okay, moving into eyeshadow. This one, I was at 32 in January. In August, I was still at 32. I had not bought a single eyeshadow palette yet. Didn't know what to set a goal for at that time, so I said maybe +2, maybe -2, maybe I'll talk myself into decluttering, and I definitely did not. And now I currently have 38. So at Christmas time, I went a little crazy with ColourPop, and I got 3 of their mini palettes, and then I bought the Sultry palette, and then I bought the, I had already bought in September or October, I had bought the Jackie Aina palette. And also in, I think it was October or November, I got the Natasha Denona Lila palette. So that was the 6 new ones that I bought in this year. And a little bit of me feels a little bit better about the fact that 3 of those palettes are kind of mini palettes, and they're things that one of them is a little bit of an impulse, but the other 2 were things that I had wanted for so long. Since they came out, I wanted them, and I waited until, I waited months for them to finally either go on sale or something. Actually, all of them I did that with. So I think that all in all, I'm still being better about what palettes I'm bringing into my life. I know in 2018, I bought in so many palettes into my collection at once that I couldn't even get, I don't think I was able to use them all more than 5 times throughout the entire year, and I neglected the rest of my collection. So I know for a fact that I need to limit myself on the number of palettes that I bring in, but this is also a category that I don't necessarily have an ideal number for, because eyeshadow is something that I feel makes me excited, makes me want to be creative, makes me fuels that part of my personality. So I don't want to overconsume either. I don't want to I don't want my collection to be where I literally ignore parts, like whole palettes for a year because I'm using other things. So I need to kind of, this is a part of my collection that I really want to spend a little bit more time with. I want to figure out what the ideal collection size is for me, just because I don't want to feel overwhelmed, but at the same time I don't want to feel like I can't, like I'm not allowed to bring things in, if that makes sense. To cap up this area, I used 0, I decluttered 0, 6 new ones, but I did hit 7 new pans within my collection. And my goal, I'm leaving it kind of open because again, I need to figure out what my ideal collection is. And so at this time, if I have no idea what ideally I'm comfortable with, then I don't think it's fair to myself to set a realistic goal. Obviously, I'm hoping that I'm gonna be successful with the no buy this year, but but come Christmas time and my birthday, I'm probably gonna ask for like eyeshadow palettes for those gifts, because those are things that they honestly get me most excited. So I already have a little wish list going. If you are watching this, family, I have plenty of recommendations for you. All right, moving into eyeshadow singles. In January, I had 54. In August, I had 46, and my goal was 43, and I now have 46. I actually probably would have been really close to hitting my goal. However, because I used 3 singles up, I decluttered 10, but I did buy 2 new singles when I was home for Christmas, and I absolutely am in love with the 2 singles that I bought. So I feel pretty good about that. Like, I'm not feeling too guilty about the fact that I didn't hit my goal. I did hit 6 new pans within this section of my collection last year, and that's also pretty exciting. I tend to reach for my ColourPop singles quite a bit, and I enjoy putting them in projects. So this is a category that I don't feel like is out of control, but I don't ever want to be overwhelmed by it. So I kind of want to be like, I kind of want to be aware that if I do expand this in the future, I need to do so slowly because I don't want it to get out of hand, even though I feel like right now it's manageable. So my goal for the end of this year, I said to get it down to 45, which is just maybe using 1 up. So we'll see how that goes, and yeah. And if anything, I think that's just motivation for me to steadily reach for my singles and not ignore them. And so, you know, if I'm working to try to get 1 used up this year, then that would be pretty exciting and pretty motivating to continue to reach for things like that. Okay, moving into eyeliner. In January, I had 24. In August, I had 23. My goal was 21, and I am now at 22. So I didn't quite make it. I used 3 eyeliners up last year, and I did get 1 new eyeliner. So my goal for the end of this year is 19, and I do think that this is one of those part of my collections that I can whittle down in the future quite a bit, but I'm not in a rush to get there. I don't feel overwhelmed by my like what I have, but I do realize that I only have about 4 or 5 colorful eyeliners, and I just don't reach for them that often. So I would like to kind of keep in mind which colors I really truly love and try to hold on to those, and then not bring too many other colorful ones in unless I really see myself using them quite often. So I'm learning quite a bit already about what my eyeliner preferences are, and I should hopefully be smart and smarter about what I bring in the future. Okay, moving into mascara. In January I had 18, in August I had 19, and my goal was 14. I'm now sitting at 16, which I just barely missed my goal. Actually, I was gonna do better than my goal because I was so close to finishing off a couple, or like almost 3 mascaras by the end of December, but they stretched into the end of this month. So I did use 3 last year. I got 1 new one. My goal for this year is going to be 11, and I do think that I am like capable of hitting that goal. I will say that I am really proud to say that even though my mascara collection is a little bit more sizable than I think the average person's, I only have like 3 mascaras open at a time at max, and I'm someone who likes to layer, so I don't feel like I'm like wasting anything or anything. I think I'm being smart about the items that I do have. They're nice, they're sanitary, they're not drying out, so hopefully they won't go to waste. Moving into spray. In January, I had 7. In August, I had 9, and my goal was 8, and I'm currently at 8. So I did use 1 up, and I did get 2 new sprays over the year. So my goal this year is to get that number down to 5, which I do think is realistic. Lashes, let's move into lashes. So January, I had 35 pairs. In August, I had 32. My goal was to get to 28, and I'm currently at 29. So close, but not quite there. So I used up 7 lashes, and I did get 1 new pair. My goal for the end of this year is to get down to 20. And again, my lashes are something that I'm not feeling too overwhelmed by, but I do want to be mindful of the fact that I realize now the number of that I use up in a year is like less than 10, so I don't need to buy more than like 10 in a year, definitely. So probably in the future I could see ideally that my collection would live around 5 to 7, maybe even 10 at the most, and then I'd just be really mindful about how many that I'm actually bringing in. Moving into lip liner, oh, okay, as we get into this lip category section, let me just say that I am super excited because I've done a lot of work in this area and I think that you should be able to see. So, lip liner, January last year I had 23, in August I had 23, my goal was 22, I now have 23. I had 1 lip liner in a year-long project pan that just is still kicking, so I didn't use it up. I did use up 1 lip liner, a Wet n Wild one, and I got 1 new one. My goal this year is to hit 20. Lip liners are a little bit, I'm slow to use them, but I am using them, so I'm okay with that number for now. Bullet lipsticks, are you ready? This is where it gets exciting. January I had 62, in August I had 68. We were going the wrong way, and then my goal was by the end of the year was to get to 65. I now have 52. I'm so excited. I ended up using up 2 lipsticks in 2019. I decluttered 14. I reorganized one of them into a blush one, like I said, and then I did get 7 new ones last year. That was prior to me doing my lipstick roulette project. I will also try to link the playlist for that here. I feel like I made such good progress. Doing that project made such a difference in what that number and the other numbers that you're about to see. My goal for the end of this year is to get my lip collection down to 50. So another thing that I should say here is that I am someone who absolutely adores bullet lipsticks, and so I do realize that my collection will probably be bigger than most people's, but I do know that 50 is probably a little too much, so I am going to work over the next period of time to kind of downsize shades that I know I have duplicates of. I need to start working those out. But yeah, let's move into liquid lipsticks. Now this one is insane. All right, January last year I had 61, August I had 56, and that number was due to I reorganized. I had 7 lip like toppers, and they were like loose pigments that you're supposed to like tap on over liquid lips. I put them into a different category, so they've been reorganized. So that's where that difference is. And then my goal by the end of 2019 was to get to 50 liquid lips, and I am now at 29. Is that not insane for someone who's not good at letting things go? So like I said, I had reorganized those 7 products. I decluttered 22 liquid lipsticks. I used 0, but I also didn't buy any, which was a big deal for me. And then my goal by the end of this year is going to be to get that down to 27. So because you know I just did that giant project and I made such big progress, I think I'm slowing myself down expectation wise, but maybe we'll see if I surpass my expectations, fingers crossed. That would be really nice. Okay, now gloss. In January I had 38, in August I had 40. My goal was to get to 35, and I am now at 27, which is really exciting. I actually used 7 glosses last year. I am a gloss girl, if you can't tell. I did declutter 6 glosses, and then I did get 2 new glosses. My goal for this year is going to be to get that down to 20. I would like to see this number under 10 in the future, and I think ideally it would live in the 10s or in under 10, but I know I have a ways to go, but I don't mind using up glosses. They're actually pretty, like, kind of a pleasure to use, so I'm feeling good about that category and the direction that it's headed in. And then the last category to talk about is miscellaneous. And in January I had 15, in August I had 16. My goal was to get it to 14, and I'm currently at 20. I used 0. I did reorganize 3, so there were certain things that I realized had not been counted in either my skincare inventory or my makeup inventory, things like the eye drops that you see there. And now that I realize I use those mostly for like liquid eyeshadows and to like rehydrate things as they are maybe drying out, I put them in this miscellaneous category. So there are things like that that didn't technically live anywhere, and now they're just counted in the right category. So that's why mostly that you're seeing this number go up. I did buy 2 new products in this category last year. So my goal for this year is to get that number down to 18. And as a final recap, this is the first time I did not add up the total number of items that I had in the past, but I did now. So I wanted to share last year in January, I had 504 items total in my collection. In August, I was moving in the wrong direction and I had 512. And right now, I have 448 items, which is a difference of 56 from January. So I feel like I'm, having set some goals, having kept track of my empties for a whole year, I really am learning from this. And even though, I'm not cutting my numbers down drastically, I feel really good about the progress that I'm making. And I'm so glad that I've decided to do this inventory, even though it can be a little scary to put yourself out there and potentially get judged by people. The fact is, and it's in the numbers, is that I'm headed in the right direction, and I have learned so much about what I prefer and what I enjoy. And I feel like even though some of my areas are still expanding, whereas maybe they should be going down, I'm getting smarter about what I'm purchasing. So I feel really, really good about it this year. I think last year when I filmed this video, I was so nervous, and this year I actually honestly feel good about it. So that is everything. Make sure you let me know what you think in the comments, say hello, and I will see you in the next one.